Let me know when you start streaming.
Press the button, but YouTube's just loading. Okay.
Alright, let me know.
Wait.
Check, go to YouTube, make sure there's like, you can see when you pop in when a viewer pops in. Or something.
I'm gonna turn to my phone. Looks like it's working.
I'm just gonna text.
Yeah, it's working.
Is it duplicating?
I think it's just because. Talk?
Hello? Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Hi, welcome to Bio News. I hope you're having a great day. Today we'll be learning about genetic engineering. Dr. Mansfield will be discussing this later on. When I say genetic engineering, I don't mean this. I mean this. A baby with blue hair. Well, I don't know this for sure, because I'm not the expert, but that's why we have one here today. It would be pretty cool. That's why there's an expert here today. He asked me to share some pros and cons for you before we start watching. Some pros to genetic engineering involve possible cures to disease, stronger crops, endless predetermination of what your children could look like, so any customization. And some cons are unknown risks. It's very unethical to test on humans right now. It's not fair to bring a child into the world simply for testing. And you have no choice. There's also less natural points in the world. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video from Dr. Mansfield. Zip line.
Today, I'll be teaching you guys about genetic engineering. Does not work. Plants and Monsanto. Today, we will be learning about the technology behind genetic engineering known as CRISPR. On top of that, we'll be exploring the genetic modification of plants and Monsanto. Hopefully you guys remember them, as they were notorious for the spread of genetically modified plants. Genetic engineering is an interesting topic to dive into due to its looming influence on our future, as well as the future of our... Thanks, Riley. Today, I'll be teaching you guys about genetic engineering. Genetic engineering, definition, is a deliberate modification of characteristics of an organism by manipulating its genetic material. Today, we will be learning about the technology behind genetic engineering known as CRISPR. On top of that, we'll be exploring the genetic modification of plants and Monsanto. Hopefully you guys remember them, as they were notorious for the spread of genetically modified plants. Genetic engineering is an interesting topic to dive into due to its looming influence on our future, as well as the future of our children. Editing our hereditary genes will have an effect on not just us, but those that follow after. And finally, we will discuss He Jiankui, hopefully I pronounced that right, a scientist from China who is responsible for creating the first genetically engineered child. One scientist, He Jiankui, spent 3 years in jail in China for his work on CRISPR embryos. The Center for Genetics and Society says for safety and ethical social reasons, heritable genome editing is widely considered unacceptable. It is prohibited in 70 countries by a binding international treaty. They say the experiments must be carried out in a safe and orderly manner that does not disrupt any other cell or function. He Jiankui, also known as JK, claimed that he was the first to change the genetic makeup of 2 embryos and implant them into a woman's uterus. The woman gave birth to 2 twins later on. As the scientific community looked on in horror, he was arrested. His arrest sent a message to any other scientist trying to replicate his experiment. This experiment is an example of an ethical backlash that someone may face for an act, which is one of the many cons of genetic engineering. Technology will not be able to move forward until society sees fit. As with such acts of JK's experiments, we don't know what could come from this, and if those children will be okay later on. JK claims that the children will not be able to contract AIDS, or also known as HIV. It's unclear how he did this and what process he used to do this, but he claims that they'll be resistant to HIV in the future, and future experiments with the twins. Jiankui continued his experiments later on and created a 3rd child, although not much is known about this 3rd child compared to the 2 Genetic engineering would not be possible without the use of CRISPR technologies. CRISPR-Cas9 is a system that can target specific parts of genetic code in order to edit DNA at precise locations. It's been used to permanently modify genes in organisms and is currently being used in an attempt to treat genetic disease. CRISPR, CPF1, is vastly different from CA9. CPF1 only uses 1 RNA compared to the 2 that CASR9 uses. CPF1 is cutting DNA, it leaves short overhang ends that are exposed. This helps with an accurate insertion of DNA. Possible mutation at the cut can occur using CAS9, which is why scientists are pursuing CPF1. CPF1 cuts and leaves short overhang ends and exposed ends. This helps with an accurate insertion of DNA at certain points in the genetic code. Possible mutations at the cut can occur using CAS9, which is why scientists are further pursuing CPF1. CPF1 attached to a short sequence called PAM. The largest DNA must be adjacent to this. The target DNA must be adjacent to this. CPF1 recognizes many more sequences than CAS9 as well. CRISPR can help target genetic mutations and defects that may occur throughout someone's lifetime. Plants can be genetically modified to produce a higher yield. This means more food for everybody. They can also live longer, which would help with the yield, as farmers would have more plants for longer. They would also be more resilient to weather conditions and changes. This means that plants may have a higher chance of surviving drought and extreme cold. The alteration of human cells and genes is a very controversial topic, and it's something that should be discussed. Being able to control the uncontrollable can have many effects on diversity in the future, whether that's positive or negative. A negative could be that there's more and more people popping up with similar traits like hair color and eye color and height. You could have lots of people be 6'4" in a certain area because that's what's popular at the time. Or you could look at another area and have people with completely different, variable traits. Gene therapy is similar to genetic engineering. With gene therapy, doctors deliver a healthy copy of a gene to cells inside the body. This healthy gene may replace a damaged mutated gene, an inactive and mutated gene, or replace an entirely new gene. Carriers called vectors transport these healthy genes into cells. That's what the Cleveland Health Clinic describes gene therapy as. Gene therapy is an alternative to genetic engineering. Genetic engineering nowadays is kind of focused on embryos and how we can prevent diseases from occurring later on in life, whereas gene therapy focuses on how we can cure them now. Thank you guys for listening to my presentation about genetic engineering. I hope you guys took something away from this, and I hope it makes you think about the future and what we could look like in the future.
Hang on. Go.
Well, I hope you learned something from that. I know the audio at the start wasn't the greatest, but I hope the video was a little informative. I hope you guys have a great day. I'll see you back up in class. Bye. God.
It worked.
I hope you guys have a great day. I'll see you back up in class.
And then.
Yeah. Oh wait,